we hack the code and flip the tag. Where cliches come to retire. Drop that beat, turn down to fire. Say what's real, make fears take a seat. Unconventional wisdom, dancing on your feet. Hey.
Hello and welcome to Unconventional Wisdom, about conventional wisdom. I'm your host, Kim Miller-Hershon. I'm really excited for my conversation today with Dave Gli. He co-founded EZDC 3PL. That's quite a mouthful. And they are a Kentucky-based logistics company. And they provide reliable and affordable warehousing, fulfillment, and transportation services to manufacturers and e-commerce companies. And what's funny about that, Dave and I were just chatting before we got on here, and I was saying, oh, did I tell you that my husband used to be in fulfillment? But what Dave does and what my husband did look very different, because my husband did it before the rise of the internet. So it was literally about sending like brochures and sales packets and papers, right? That's what they warehoused. You have come a long way. And he also produces a podcast, which is Beyond Fulfillment Podcast. And it's focused on the entrepreneurial journey. Dave, first of all, just welcome. Excited to have this conversation with you today.
Yeah, I'm excited to be here. Thanks so much for having me, Kim.
Awesome. All right. So my random question for you is, how do you balance sort of your own well-being with being a co-founder and running a large company?
Oh, wow. Yeah, wellness is something that's very important to me, particularly at my age. I'm getting into my later 40s. And so you certainly have to really be intentional about how you live if you want to really look and feel your best. Yeah, for me, I start the day, every day I start with movement. I'm at the gym first thing in the morning. I hydrate, I eat clean, I meditate, gotten into yoga recently, particularly in the warmer months. I'm always out nature walking or mountain biking or something. So I just really enjoy living a healthy, active lifestyle. And that translates, at least I find, translates into me showing up as my best self in every other area of my life.
I agree with you 100%. I think that you really do have to start with your own wellness, right? It's the put your own oxygen mask on first before you can help others. I'm a huge advocate for that. Although I will say that I have found myself doing a lot of wine drinking recently. But I guess we could say that that's healthy as long as you don't overdo it. I don't know.
Yeah.
What do you think?
To each their own, right? I guess it's the resveratrol in there, right? Is that what they say? That's good for you. But yeah, to each their own. And yeah, like you said, right? You always gotta focus on your own well-being
Yeah,
first.
it does make me happy. That's for sure.
Okay,
Um,
good. That's
yeah.
important. That is important.
Yeah, not that you can't drink wine or enjoy wine anywhere in the country. I do happen to live in the San Francisco Bay Area, like 40 minutes from Napa. So there is
Ah,
also, right, proximity that works in my favor. All right, Dave, let's jump into a little bit of your journey here to entrepreneurship. And the first question I really have for you around that is, I think we all start out with a lot of notions about what success is going to look like, right? What the world of work is going to look like, whether that was modeled for you in your family of origin, right? And or you went into an industry where the people who were successful did it in a very particular way, right? So you have all these preconceived notions of what success is going to look like. And here you are, right? So what's one thing that you thought was going to be like your success metric, only to find out later that it really wasn't?
are you talking with this current business or just in general in life?
Isn't that? I'm going to let you choose, because what do you think the listeners want to hear? What's the interesting answer?
Yeah, so I've been in sales, the sales profession, really my whole adult life.
Okay.
And so very early on, I had a mentor that really introduced me to personal development. From a young age, too, I was fascinated by the idea that the more you work on yourself, how that can impact your results and then your income, potentially being in sales. I had a long corporate career in sales and did very well for 20 plus years. But I always had a burning desire to I was always ambitious and wanted to do my own thing. And eventually that's where I'm at now. But I guess for me, I always found success, or I guess like just enjoying what you do, being good at it, and being able to earn a good living and provide for your family. That's what success, I guess, looked like for me all these years. And obviously, that takes different shapes as you grow and evolve throughout your career. But that's what I would see as professional success.
Okay. So let me ask you the question in a different way. What did conventional wisdom tell you about success that you ultimately said, this is not a good this is not a good metric for me, or I got to figure this out on my own?
So growing up, it was the kind of traditional advice. You go to school, you go to college, and you'll get a good job and live happily ever after. And I did that. I did pretty well in school, and I went to college. I ended up dropping out of college. And at that point, it just didn't see it. And at that point in my life, and I got into sales, and pretty much thereafter, I started doing well in sales, and that was really my path
You
professionally.
re-
So I guess
Go ahead.
yeah, I guess you could say that part of conventional wisdom wasn't for me. And I still see that so much today in terms of the world. And that's a whole other conversation too. But I think now more than ever, people are questioning whether or not college necessarily is worth it. And that really depends on your situation, what you want to do. There's a lot of variables, but I'm certainly of the opinion that it's not a prerequisite to be successful in any way. But again, it really depends who you are, what you're doing, and what you want to do with your life.
I think one interesting part of that is that we really have not provided young people with a lot of alternatives, right? So we have the very conventional, like you said, graduate from high school, go to college, get a good job. And actually, what you're saying really is there are some things that you need to be trained to do. Then we had the trade school route. Conventionally, that was not for high achievers. You didn't go to trade school if you were a high achiever. You only went to college if you were a high achiever. And I'm just throwing out platitudes here. I'm not making any judgments. In fact, I'm actually making an anti judgment. Like, how ridiculous is that? And then I think, third, there's no other path except to go to work. There's no other non traditional way to learn, right? The one incredible thing about trades was that if you were a better hands on learner, you got hands on experience, right? But that was it, right? And we still don't really offer young people any other option.
Yeah, yeah. In terms of, I guess, the conventional wisdom from society, very early on in the school system too, it's ingrained in terms of that's what you do next as you go to college, and
Right.
that's the system. Unless you're going to homeschool and take a totally traditional path, that's the system for the majority of
Right.
people. But yeah, I do think it's exciting these days too, particularly with the rise of the internet and now the rise of AI. There's that you have access to all the information in the world at your fingertips. And if you want to do something, if you want to try something, if you want to learn something, it's never been easier. So I think that would be my message to people is I forget the name of the author, but it's a very famous guy. And he wrote a book. I think it's called You Can Just Do Stuff. But yeah, so I don't know what we were talking about, but
No, I just think so. Let me ask you this, if you don't mind sharing. So, when you dropped out of college, was that a fraught decision for you? Did you feel any shame around that? Like, now, is it like, do you have any feelings about saying I didn't finish college, or is it just not, it doesn't trigger you?
nah, none whatsoever. None whatsoever. And listen, I've always had confidence, particularly in my ability. And I always had confidence in my ability to learn and try things and do things. I know some people have that identity where it's so ingrained, and I just it was never that deep for me. I don't have any shame about it whatsoever.
Okay. And your parents didn't lay anything on you about it?
They would, but again, when you're an adult, For a long time, my mom would say, you could go back to college. And I was just like, what? No.
Yeah. And I think actually, I don't know, but maybe what is a differentiator for you is that you were a good student, right, to begin with. So maybe it's different because you were really making a choice. I just don't see how this is going to get me where I want to go versus I don't think I can succeed here. I don't
Yeah,
know.
yeah. And I think I always had like that impatience in terms of let's get to it. What are we doing? And school and all that type of stuff came easy to me. So I wasn't really sweating, oh no, what's going to happen if I don't finish
Right.
college? And you know how it is when you're young too. You're just, at least I wasn't sweating it at the time.
I love that. And you know what is so funny is that I think I was the opposite, which is I just love school, right? I just love learning things, which, like you said, now you have so much knowledge at your fingertips. I'm old enough that the internet didn't exist. Oh my God. So I didn't have access to that kind of information. So school felt like the place to get that. Oh God. Maybe they'll edit that out. I can't believe I said that. Before the internet. Oh my Lord. Okay. All right. I digress. Let's go on. All right.
Okay.
So listen, you've got a really great business going right now. You're successful. What's one thing that people assume on the outside, like you've got this buttoned up, and behind the scenes, you still wrestle with it?
Yeah, I would think one thing, particularly when even, and I know this from talking to a lot of people, I hear this all the time with my podcast where I'm interviewing different entrepreneurs. Just because when you see someone like on the outside successful and you might think that like they don't struggle with fear or doubt or all that internal stuff, like they don't have the same survival based mind that's going to attack you with those limiting thoughts when you're really trying something new, really going in a new direction or something. So I would say that's one thing too, right? Like those thoughts still come up, and particularly as you're growing, you're scaling, you're trying new things. The same kind of thoughts come up about, are you sure this is going to work? What if it fails? What's going to happen if this? When all different things come up in the course of running a business that you have to deal with those type of things. And it's not like those thoughts don't come up for all of us, but it's like, how do you respond? Like you really have to push past the
Right.
fear and still act. Doesn't mean you're not afraid, but it's really, I think it's more of like the belief that no matter what happens, even if I get knocked down or even if that doesn't work, I'll be able to bounce back and figure it out rather than caving to the fear and being afraid to try something.
I think I feel like the same way in the last year. Like my team and I have really been building a lot of new programs and new things. And my business is to the point where I can step back and create that foundation. But I will tell you, anybody who says when you're building new things that, just build it and they will come, right? There's a lot of hard work involved in it. And it takes a while for these things to really scale. And I just sitting in the having patience is sometimes a very challenging thing, right? Oh my God, what have I done? Right? Am I going in the right direction? Like all of those things. And you just have to sit back and have faith and do the work, right? You got to do the work. But I think that, like you said, any entrepreneur that says that they don't have fear is probably not being honest.
Yeah, it's interesting. One of the questions I ask on my podcast now all the time, I was just interviewing this woman, it's 2 days ago, right? Very successful speakers, done the TED Talks, written books. On the outside, she's got this really amazing business. I was like, was there ever a point in time you thought about giving? She's, oh my God, all the time. And she talked about part of her journey. It just wasn't clear. And so most people looking at it from the outside would never have even thought that. But she went into depth about, yeah, but same thing. If you believe in what you're doing, you got to keep moving forward and do the work. And if you persist long enough, good things are going to happen.
Right. 100%. How many people do you have in your company?
So we have 10 employees.
10 employees. Okay. But enough, right?
Yeah.
And if you could rewrite the rule book on leadership, What's one outdated belief that you would throw away, and what would you replace it with?
Yeah, I don't know if I ever read the conventional rule book on leadership, but I find, particularly right with the team, because again, we're a young company, we're growing and scaling, and the key people on my team are very involved and bought into what we're doing. And even though I'm president and co-founder, regardless, like I'm very open and transparent about the good, the bad, and the ugly of what's going on in terms of this is a problem. The things that they're not directly involved with that I'm dealing with, but we talk every morning and I try to be as open and transparent as possible, not only just because they need to know really what's going on, but I also value their opinion, value their feedback, and sometimes too a different perspective helps you with various decisions. I think it's very different than I guess maybe I don't know if it's an old school way of doing it, but it's kind of I'm the boss, just do what I say type of thing. It's no, like we're a team and I value everyone's contribution and their work and their opinion. And I want them to be as involved as possible. They feel comfortable about what we're doing, but also because they certainly can help.
And I think that idea, it goes both ways, right? The idea, the conventional wisdom that says the leader is here and everybody else is down here, I think isn't certainly an outdated model, right? I think on the other hand, probably one of the hardest things with being a leader is where is the line, right? On the one hand, you want to be transparent and you want to get the help, right? And you want collaboration and the team. And then I think sometimes it's really hard to find the line of, yeah, I don't need to burden them with this. That's mine as the leader. I don't know if you've ever run across that, but I can tell you in my coaching, it definitely comes up.
Yeah, I guess it just depends, probably really depends too on the situation. And maybe not every single thing is for everybody, of course, just depending on what it is. But I also find too, it's so like when you give respect, you get respect, right? To where you treat people with respect, even if you're right, having to make people do what they need to do or whatever it is, right? If you do that in a respectful way, people are going to respect you as a person, regardless of the title or the position. Yeah, but I find because again, we're working together every day, constantly on all types of things. So I want to have a good rapport and a good relationship that's based on respect. And I find when you do that, everything tends to work out.
Yeah, I would agree. All right. So, what's one unconventional habit or mindset shift that's helped you grow your business?
Habit or mindset shift. I'll give you an example too, right? I have a podcast, which you mentioned. And even though the podcast itself is about entrepreneurship and it's just focusing on providing good, valuable conversations for the audience, it's not directly, quote unquote, a lead magnet. It's actually done incredibly well as a lead magnet for the business. And I found that as my content that I put out became less self promotional and just more focused on value, naturally just more and more people resonated with it and it turned into more leads and more business without that direct because I don't know about you, but numerous people told me, why are you going to put all that work into a podcast unless it's a direct lead man? Numerous people told me that. You should you service e-commerce companies, so you should do a e-commerce podcast so that way everyone that comes on will be an e-commerce company and then they'll turn it. And I just didn't do that, but yet it's worked out incredibly well. I guest on a lot of podcasts too, and I'm sure you get solicited by all these marketers and all these people. I get solicited endlessly as a founder with all types of stuff. But I've had marketers tell me that, hey, we're going to turn every guest appearance into a lead magnet where it's not just a random conversation. And I'm just like everything doesn't have to be strictly transactional. Like I'm very much about providing value and doing good things for people without an immediate expectation of anything. And when you live that kind of way and you put out that kind of energy, good things naturally happen. At least that's what I believe. I guess that's some conventional wisdom that I've gone against, but yet it's worked out well.
Yeah, Dave, I love that. And I think that is very true for me as well. Is that I would say I had a clear vision for this podcast when I started it that, and actually, you and I met before we recorded, and I think probably one of the first things I said to you is there has to be value for the listener, right? Like, we are here to provide value. And that's the point of the podcast. Where what you're talking about came up for me is that I just wrote a book and I'm actually in the midst of developmental editing and getting it published. And what's interesting is I had the same experience. People said, "Oh my God, you're a coach, you need a book." And the model was like, "Oh, Dave, you're a prospective client. Let me send you my book." And everybody told me that the book needs to be a lead magnet. It needs to be like yeah, just like to get prospective clients. And what's interesting is that I wrote the book and I was like, I'm so uninterested in using this as a marketing piece. Like, I actually have something to say here that feels important. I'm putting it out in the world to add value, to talk a lot about what we talk about on this podcast, which is unlocking something in yourself by giving yourself permission to be able to authentically be who you are and to have this success that you are looking for. And I don't know, I'll let you know whether it brings in clients or not, but that is not my, it's not my concern. The universe will take care of that for me.
Yeah, yeah, 100%. And there's that energy of not needing it. To, like you said, you have something to say, you're being authentically, you're putting this content out, this book out to provide value. And so when you do that, the right people are going to resonate with it. And I would think that you'll do a lot better with that than maybe something that was inauthentic, but meant to be a lead magnet because it's not you.
Exactly, 100%. And just by the way, sorry, any listeners out there, if you have written a book about your profession and you're using it as a marketing vehicle, like, actually, I don't mean to be judgmental about that. I think that's totally fine. I just think that for me, as I wrote the book, I was like, oh, this is much bigger than for me. This is, I have something to say that I really want out in the world. But I have no judgment on anybody who has written a book and using it as a marketing vehicle. I just wanted to say that because I don't want to be judgy.
Yeah, and look, I agree. And we have lead magnets, right? There's nothing wrong with lead
Right.
magnets, but everything you do, because right, we're all have so many aspects to us, and you can explore all those different aspects of yourself and put whatever kind of content out you want. And yeah, everything doesn't have to be strictly transactional. I guess that's the point.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. Great way to put that. All right. We are getting down to the last question. And you addressed this a little bit before, but I want to really hone in. And that is specifically about imposter syndrome. So at this point, if it's going to come up for you, right, that self-doubt, the trigger about, oh no, is that going to come up for, where is that going to come up for you? What are the circumstances? How do you get yourself moving forward again? How do you stop the inertia or the black hole of bad feelings?
Yeah, I heard this from, I don't remember exactly who, but it was someone very successful in an interview was talking about the same thing. And they say, when I feel that fear in the moment, to me, that's a signal to step on the gas and I just go. Right. And so when I heard that, so for me too, I'm putting out all different types of content, things I post or appearances I do or whatever. Right. And sometimes, oh, should I really post this or should I? And so when that comes up to me, like I remember that, I'm like, do it, go. Like whenever that fear is coming up, or when I'm maybe reaching out to someone or trying to start any type of conversation with someone that maybe is on a different level, a perceived level than me. And it's, should I even just do it, go do it. And so in my mind, I hear that. And it's like when you start to get that, oh, I don't know about this, I channel that same thing. No, that's a signal. You got to just do it. And I just tell myself, just do it. Come on, do it. Go hit send or whatever, hit publish. And
Right.
so I found that's worked well. And so often, right? Like the mind is a survival mechanism that's designed to keep you safe. And so often this imposter syndrome or this fear like you realize once you act and once you do the thing, like whatever was going to happen or whatever your mind was trying to convince you was going to happen, you realize was no big deal at all. So when you just get used to taking action in spite of the fear, the fear just gets weaker and weaker. That's what I find.
I love that. It's time to put on the gas because I think we can all relate to that. Should I post that? Should I send that email, make that request, that sort of thing? And oftentimes it's just hit the button and just let go. I think the other thing is that we often put way too much weight on the outcome of any one thing, which I think can be difficult. The other thing that I have found is that, so I have a team, a back end team. And if I have emotional attachment to these things, often I'll ask my team to do it because to them, it's just a task, right? They don't have the same feelings about it as I do. And I found it a really effective way to move things forward. Whereas, so for me, when I get that, oftentimes it leads to procrastination. It leads to overthinking and it leads to procrastination. So if I task my team to do it, it just happens.
I like that.
Yeah. And it's really moved a lot of things forward much
Cool.
quicker. Yeah.
Yeah. I might use that.
Yeah. No, I think it's a good, it's been super effective. So you definitely use it.
Cool.
Dave, thank you so much for chatting with us today, for bringing your perspective and your value. As we've talked about in the conversation, we do this to provide value, right? Knowing that there are listeners who are unlocked by something that you said and are able to move something forward. And that's a great value. So thank you.
Oh, appreciate that. 100%. I agree. And yeah, thank you so much for having me. And yeah, definitely keep doing what you're doing with the podcast because, like you said, you're providing a lot of value for your listeners.
Thank you. All right. Friend, you have been listening to Unconventional Wisdom about conventional wisdom. In the show notes, you will see Dave's information. So if you're interested, connect with him on LinkedIn, listen to his podcast. And if you have an e-commerce company and you need a good logistics company, talk to him about that. For me, I would love for you to subscribe to my newsletter. It comes out once a week. People have told me it's valuable. It's pretty short, so check it out. And you have been listening to Unconventional Wisdom about conventional wisdom. I'm your host, Kim Miller-Hershon. We've been talking to Dave Gulas, and we'll see you next time.
Where cliches come to retire. Drop that beat, turn down to fire. Say what's real, make fears take a seat. Unconventional wisdom, dancing on your feet. Hey.